Again, a lot of employees have been raising concerns of bodily autonomy and bodily freedom in the context of mandatory vaccination policies. And it's important to understand the laws that apply to workplace relationships and those that don't. So, probably the most relevant piece of legislation for mandatory vaccination policies is the Ontario Occupational Health and Safety Act. Again, as of filming, it doesn't contain any specific rules with respect to vaccination policies. So usually employers will simply rely on their general obligation to take all reasonable health and safety precautions to implement mandatory vaccination policies. So again, the employer will slot it under that general obligation that they have. But of course, employees raise concerns. They might raise counter health and safety concerns of vaccinating. And again, we don't have a lot of case law at the present time, unfortunately, to determine whether or not mandatory vaccination policies are reasonable or if it depends on the specific employer or specific employees. Right now, we're left with some tension and some general legal principles that we can look to in each case.
With regards to how courts are likely to look at this issue of mandatory vaccination, in Ontario so far it's generally been in the unionized only context where labor arbitrators have ruled on whether mandatory vaccination policies are reasonable and necessary for a workplace. However, it's important to remember that distinction between a unionized workplace and a non-unionized workplace. With a unionized workplace, there's a collective bargaining agreement in place that governs the relationship between the employer and the employee. In non-unionized work environments, it's a completely different scenario. There is no collective bargaining agreement, and there has not been really any court decisions dealing with the non-unionized work environment with regards to mandatory vaccination. While labor arbitrators have sometimes upheld the mandatory vaccination policies for their unionized cases, it's important to keep that distinction in mind